Next up is our wonderful, our lovely Julia Chauvin.
Okay, I've never really read one of these before, and I'm not quite drunk enough to, so wish me luck. And I am not poetry girl, so you are going to have to put up with the first chapter of my project from novel writing class. Violet did not believe that she was psychic. Conveniently, nobody else working at the Chakra Psychic's telephone hotline thought she was either. "You seem like you'd be a good fit for our team," said Mr. Spencer, in charge of hiring, during her first and only interview with the company. His tasteless tie, coated in sunflowers, kept dipping into the open drawer, as if fishing for spare paper clips. "Really?" she said, skeptical. She had no experience other than owning a tarot deck, and with her last name, nobody else in town had been willing to take a chance on her. "Yes, it's rare that we have the truly gifted join our team. Why don't we get you started?" Legally, Chakra trusted in her supernatural aptitude. Her contract with the hotline included the clause, "It is my opinion that I possess clairvoyant abilities." But for the pay, Violet could be convinced that she was able to predict the next song on the radio in the instant before it started playing. For $1.99 per minute, people called Chakra looking for help from the supernatural. Instead, they got Violet, who knew her way around a tarot deck and was willing to read a card so it meant whatever her caller wanted it to mean. "Hello, this is Violet. How can the cards help you today?" "Is my doctor trying to kill me?" An elderly woman's voice crackled over the line, accusatory. Violet glanced down at her cards, still in their case. "The cards don't seem to think so, ma'am. What makes you believe this?" "When I take my stockings off at night, my heart beats in my chest. I just got home from the doctor, and all they did was give me a prescription for a size up in pantyhose." Mr. Spencer, listening in for her first solo call, jabbed his finger at the extensive list of Chakra's scripted responses pinned above Violet's station. "The spirit world tells me that you are a beautiful soul, ma'am," Violet said, slowing her words. Mr. Spencer flashed her a thumbs up as she started shuffling her tarot deck. "Why don't you tell me about what's really bothering you? The spirit world tells me I should ask about your family." Chakra cares about keeping their clients on the line for a minimum of 15 minutes. But that doesn't bother Violet. She's good at appeasing people. It's what she's done for years. It feels natural for her to be doing it for money. After all, that's what Elsa does too. There were always two reactions when people learned her last name. First, there was the "any relation to," followed by the softening of the chin, the sympathetic crease between the brows, and then there was the "oh, you're his sister," accompanied by something hardening behind the eyes, and usually a story of someone they knew who they'd lost that day. Violet preferred the second. She could play to the anger, the hurt, and get them to calm down. With that reaction, it was about them. But the first, Violet hated the pity. Martha Summers, armored in rings on every finger, fell into the first category. "You poor thing," she said, clutching the crucifix at her throat. "You must have been barely old enough to be there." "I don't really remember it," Violet said, looking back to her cubicle. The relative safety of the box seemed far away through the tunnel of a low ceiling and the narrow makeshift hall. She was trapped between Martha, the only employee at Chakra who believed in her own abilities, and Steamboat, the only fish left in its tank after having eaten its companions. Normally, Violet scurried past Steamboat to the bathroom and back. The whitefish creeped her out, with one bulbous, filmy eye peering out at her through the layers of green scum. But compared to this conversation, the one she's had too many times to count, Violet would rather let Steamboat nibble on her flesh. Everyone had a different memory of that April afternoon. Violet was 7 at the time, but her best friend Caitlin was turning 8. She was allowed to bring Caitlin a present on the bus. She felt special that day, as if it were her birthday and not Caitlin's. She can't remember what the gift was, but the sunlight glinted off the silver curls of ribbon, catching in her eye and reflecting the plaid of her school jumper. Violet knew she should remember something else, something dramatic. Screams, maybe, or sirens going past, or when her mother told her. But she doesn't. She remembers Caitlin's tight hug and the sound of tissue paper underfoot. She knows Elsa's memory is of coming home early from school, condemned with lice. Even though she wasn't there, she can hear Elsa's screeches against the barrage of water. Her mother's, "Trust me, honey, lean your head back and the water won't get in your eyes. You've got to trust me." Violet almost felt the crunch of plastic protecting her favorite stuffed seal, Andre, from the bugs as she shivered at the kitchen table, watching her clothes and sheets go through the wash. After so many sessions, the stories she'd heard Elsa tell and her own memories of the day have become the same. Violet's mother was sensitive to darkness and everything. She cursed fog and mud and rain. When her youngest daughter came home with a set of tarot cards at 16, she quietly imploded. She showed her disapproval by moving the cards whenever she had the chance, putting them in another room, or even just to another table if Violet turned her head. When she found out that Violet got a job as a telephone psychic, she temporarily went deaf. Violet watched her mom wipe her face of all emotion, a skill she'd picked up over the years. "I'm sure you'll find something soon," she told Violet, sinking a little into the overstuffed brown couch that had never quite lost the whimsical almond smell of Play-Doh. "It's a rough job market these days." Violet avoided answering, and instead examined the family portrait above the mantel. The white frame stood out against the dark bricks. The picture had been taken 3 years before, at Elsa's college graduation. Violet wondered how Elsa was, but not enough to ask about her. "Have you heard from Dad?" she asked instead. "He says it's quiet up there," her mom answered. Violet knew this meant that no one reacted at the sound of his last name. That's good. She hoped her mom knew that meant that she wished she was there with him. She was getting coffee before work when she turned and saw the last person she wanted to see or expected to. Elsa stood in the doorway, sun shining down behind her and making a halo over her damp hair. She wore a baggy sweatshirt from college, and Violet couldn't quite tell if the skin under her eyes seemed dark from exhaustion or from the sun backlighting her. "Hey, booger, how's it going?" Elsa ruffled her hair the way she always did, the way she knew drove Violet insane. Violet did her best to avoid her sister's hand, but Elsa always made contact with her head. "Better. Got a job," Violet said, looking past her sister into the parking lot. She could almost feel the judgment radiating from Elsa, who couldn't stand the way that Violet hated doing the same thing every day after day. "Frickin' finally. What are you doing?" There it was. Violet knew Elsa wouldn't understand, couldn't admire the way she worked. "Telephone psychic." Elsa's eyebrows twitched upward, the one reaction Violet knew she could never control. She could feel Elsa's brain rotating over all the times Violet had gotten into trouble over her attraction to mystical things, even if she didn't believe in them. "Bet Mom's proud. So you finally got over your phone thing, huh?" "Looks like we're basically doing the same thing now, though." Violet imagined steam coming out of her ears, her head swelling, the way people did in old cartoons. "No, we aren't," she bites out. And Violet thinks that this is how Elsa felt whenever she teased Violet when they were younger. "Still having the dream?" Elsa asks. "Yes," she answered, and regrets telling her about the dream in the first place. The dream first found her when she was 8, but it hadn't visited her in the months since she started at chakra. In the dream, she's in the attic next door. The wallpaper is gray and peeling, shattering yellow posies. She's putting the rag doll her mother made her into the cavern of a trunk when the phone rings. It's the old kind, all hard buttons and warped wires, and thick green plastic, crumbling a little at the seams. When she answers, it's a girl, and "Help me, please help me." And somehow Violet knows that she needs to get down to the park. If she gets to the park, she'll find her, and she can help. The creak of the bicycle pedals echo through the streets, and she rushes to find the girl, but the park is empty. No one on the seesaw or the basketball court. A breeze ruffles dried leaves in the gazebo, but the voice stays. "Help me, please help me." She had anxiety about answering phones for years after the dream started. "Don't be such a baby," Elsa always said, snatching the phone from its cradle. Already a teenager, Elsa was satisfied with nighttime hauntings of boys and shopping. Violet didn't see how quickly she could forget the nightmares that used to terrorize her, too. "Just answer it, Vi. What's the worst that could happen?" her dad would say, nudging her towards the phone. "You have to get over it sometime," her mom would say, forcing the receiver into Violet's ear. She couldn't bring herself to pick up the phone. Terror clawed at her lungs and filled her veins with ants every time the phone rang. If she found herself alone, she would lock herself in the bathroom until it stopped, so that she could tell her parents without lying, "I must have been in the bathroom when it rang." And now, all these years later, every time Violet picks up the phone, she half expects the girl to still be on the other line. Help me, please help me. And every time she shuffles her tarot cards, she tries to help the little girl on the other end.